as far back as I can remember, we went to church growing up, and we didn't ever really go on Sunday nights or Wednesday nights, but we went on Sunday mornings for the most part. And growing up, my dad was an alcoholic. I didn't really want to call it that, didn't really want to call sin, but he was. And it was hard just going on a month-to-month basis, just knowing you didn't really know whenever your dad would blow up because of alcohol, but whenever he would, it would just ripple throughout the whole family. And as a result, I hated him for it. I didn't like my dad. I didn't like the situation God put me in. And at the same time, I was going to a school where people judged you for your name, how much money you had, who your family was, what you came from. And I didn't really like that, and I didn't really like anything about life for that matter. I didn't like any situation that I was put in. In the 6th grade, we ended up moving, and I went to a different school, a whole lot bigger than I was used to. But whenever you walked in that school, it was different. When you walked in, you knew just that Jesus was there. You walked in, people were loving on you, people were just, you felt loved, you felt like family. And I loved that because I never really felt that before, just felt accepted. At the same time, we stopped going to church completely. We just fell out of it. We never went anymore. And my dad's drinking got worse, and the fights got more often. The police got called to our house all the time. And it usually ended up in us going to my grandparents' house sometimes. On October 31st, 2012, we went to a fall festival, and it was at White, and we just started going there, and we loved it. And whenever we came home, my dad was outside, and I kind of knew he was in a bad mood, but I didn't really think anything of it. And when I came inside, a couple minutes later, there was a fight, and the police showed up at our house, and I just remember it blew up. It was the worst fight I think I've ever seen. And it ended up we left, and we went to my grandparents' house, and I knew from that point that my life was about to change because I knew we probably weren't going back. We ended up going back the next day, and when we went back, I think it was a couple weeks later, we went to the Passion Play at White Baptist Church, and I remember sitting through it, and I remember just being broken because I didn't really know that much about Jesus as much as I thought I did. And I remember looking over, and I remember seeing my dad just bawling, and I just remember just thinking God's doing something in both of our lives. And after that, it was probably a month or so later, maybe a little bit longer, my dad ended up getting saved, and it really impacted me because our whole lives changed. I mean, my whole family life changed. It went from where we knew, okay, daddy's about to blow up, to where, where you think he would blow up, he didn't. And he made us happier, I guess you could say, because as my preacher always says, the man sets the thermostat for your family. And I truly believe that because my dad set the thermostat completely for my family. And at this time we moved, and I had to go to a different school, and it was pretty hard. And when I went there, I was really just looking to be accepted because I felt accepted at my other school, and I wanted to be accepted there. And when I went there, I realized that it was more like the first school that I went to. It was really about your name and who your friends were. It wasn't really about where your heart was. And I met this one girl, and I really liked her, and because we had a lot of mutual friends, a lot of things in common. And when we sat down, she would always she wasn't nice to me, but wanted to be accepted by her because she was a popular girl, and I was like, oh, okay, I can fit in with her. And if I fit in with her, I fit in with everybody. So I went along with that thought. So when this girl, I didn't want to call, like I said, I didn't want to call alcohol a sin. I didn't want to call bullying a sin either. And I just sort of went with the flow with this girl. And one day in particular, I remember I would go set my stuff down by her at lunch or wherever we were, and she would always move my stuff to where the lesser end of the table. And at first I just thought, you know, maybe she wants somebody else to sit by her, no big deal. But it kept happening over and over and over. And eventually I just got sick and tired of it, so I went and sat with a different girl. And I remember her and a whole bunch of her friends making fun of me for sitting with some other people because they weren't popular. And so I eventually just went back to their table and sat with them. And one day I had this thermos, and I remember it had a little flip top on it, and it was real cute. It was all pink and stuff. And I remember her she made fun of me in front of probably, I would say, around 3 tables of people. And it hurt, because in the 7th grade, you want to be accepted. You want everybody to like you. And whenever you get made fun of in front of a whole group of people, you don't feel good about yourself. And I became depressed because I didn't really understand why I wasn't fitting in. I went to 3 schools, and 2 out of the 3 I didn't fit in at. And it didn't make any sense to me. This girl proclaimed to be a Christian, but her life spoke otherwise. And I got super depressed, and I started worrying about, you know, am I good enough? And what does others think of me? And why did God make me this way? And I started to have suicidal thoughts, and I actually went out to have a plan of how I was going to kill myself one day. And but thank God that never happened. God had a different plan. Some people came to the school, and it was a man he was a preacher, and his son committed suicide. And he told his story of how how that suicide affected his whole family. And I just knew I couldn't do that to my family, and I couldn't do that. I just couldn't do it. So I went to tell my mom just about everything that's been going on, because my mom knows me better than anybody, and she has great wisdom about what to do in hard situations. So I went to go and tell her, and we went and talked to the counselor, and I got changed out of, you know, the girls' classes, because I had a lot of classes with her. But she always seemed to find me, it seemed like. And I just wanted to go back to my old school. I just want to go back to where I felt accepted and where I felt loved. And every time there seemed to be a way, so you would say, it never went through. We never could go back. And I became even more depressed over we could never go back. And I just want to go back. One day, there came a house open, and we ended up moving. And I was super excited because I got to go back to my old school and see all my old friends. And right whenever I went back, it just felt like I was loved. And I just loved that. And when I went back, I loved the part of being accepted, but I just knew something was missing. I just knew that I wasn't really comfortable in my own skin still. It just seemed outrageous. And my mom told me about a job offer that my dad had gotten to go to Chicago. She asked me if I would be willing to, you know, if we had to move, would I be okay with it? And I remember telling her, no, I just got back to the school district. I don't want to move again. And so he turned it down, and we didn't go. And a couple months later, I was still dealing with the fact of, it just seemed like I wasn't a Christian. I knew the talk, I knew the lingo, I knew Bible stories, I've been in church, I've been in VBS, but I didn't really know God. I didn't have a relationship with him. It made no sense to me, anything about Christianity. And being around these people, it made it harder because they were talking a whole different language than me, but I wanted to know about it. So a lot of my friends, I remember we would go and sit in the library, and we would just talk about the things of the Bible, what they learned at Sunday school. And I just really felt out of place. I didn't really feel like I understood all of it. And I remember my mom has always told me the verse Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. And I knew that I had to seek him before I could understand anything else. And so I went to go and read my Bible one night. And as I was reading it, I just realized that it made no sense to me. I didn't understand anything about it. And I got angry because I said, I just told myself that all these answers are supposed to be in the Bible. And I keep on hearing that from my grandparents and from my mom, my dad, but it doesn't make any sense to me. And so whenever I just got completely angry one night, and I remember just sitting on my floor and praying and just angry prayers that, why did you put me through all this, God? Why can't I understand anything about you? And I just remember eventually I just got worn out from praying. I didn't feel like it was going anywhere, and so I just sat on my floor, and I just kind of, music has always been a part of my life. It's always been a way that God spoke to me. And so I remember the song Redeemed came to mind in that moment, and the verse is, I am redeemed, you set me free, so I'll shake off these heavy chains, wipe away every stain, because I'm not who I used to be. And I started thinking, my preacher always said that in order to be saved, you have to have a change in your life. And I couldn't think of a change in my life. I couldn't think of anything that I was being set free from. I was still in bondage. I was still in chains. And I just remember in that moment, God just really touched my heart and just told me to let go. If I just trust him and let go, that he will free me from everything that I'm dealing with. All this problems of, why am I not worthy? Why am I not fitting in? Because it doesn't matter if you fit in or not. But I didn't understand that. And I remember sitting in my floor. I prayed to receive Jesus in my floor that night. And God set me free. The moment that I got saved and I knew that I was saved, I just remember there being a burden lifted off my shoulders. I can't really describe it. I just know there was just a peace in my heart, and I didn't really care about what others thought about me after that point. But I remember also I was super excited to go down on that Sunday morning and tell everybody, but I didn't. I kept it to myself. And I always knew that I was saved, but I didn't feel like it was that important to go and tell everybody, because I'd been baptized twice before when I was younger. The first time I was probably around the age of 7, and I really just wanted to get in the baptistry, so I got baptized. The second time, my old preacher kind of just scared me into hell, or scared me. I didn't want to go to hell, and so I got baptized again because I thought that was the way you got saved. And so I thought, I've been baptized twice. I don't want somebody thinking I'm doing this for show, and so I didn't get baptized again. And at that point, God led our family up to Chicago, Illinois, and we moved. And I went to a school from where there was 300 people to 3,000 people in my school, and it was just a shocker. But I met people from all different religions, found out what people from everywhere thought about Jesus, and we stopped going to church because there was not a church that taught the Bible like it's written. They like to change it up. So we fell out of church, and I continued with Bible study, but when I moved back home, I just was empty. I didn't really have the joy that I used to have because I didn't follow in the first step of obedience. And that summer at Camp Centrifuge, we went through a little thing called Shine, where you go through a cycle, and there's prayer stations, and there's reading scripture. And it was really, you go through it and it's completely quiet, you don't say anything, and it was really moving. And I got to these 2 panels, and one of them was your life before Christ, and one of them was your life after Christ. And you're supposed to write something down on the board, and I walked up to it, and I remember just seeing everything that I dealt with. I remember seeing depression, suicide, not being enough, just anger, everything that I dealt with, I remember seeing on that board. And I just remember breaking down. And I went to the other board, and it was the Redeemed board. And I remember seeing just freedom and chains broken, and just so many different things that that God set me free, that he gave to me after I gave my life to him. I remember seeing on that board, and I just remember just crying because I knew I was saved, but I knew that there was something God was trying to show me that I needed to do, and I didn't really know what that was. But after that night, I knew exactly what it was that I needed to do. And when I came home from there, I went and talked to my youth pastor, and he told me that it doesn't really matter how many times you get baptized, because baptism is something that you do after Christ. It's just a symbol showing everybody that you're dying to your old self and being raised in newness of life. And after that, I remember I went down and I got baptized again. And I just remember from that point on, I really felt joy. I was really filled with joy again, because I knew that I had followed Jesus like he told me to. Because if you can't follow Jesus in the little thing, you can't follow Jesus in the hard things. At this point, after I'd been baptized, and I just knew that I was saved, and you couldn't talk me out of it. And I knew that I'd followed God. I made a mistake. I followed after sin and didn't go forward, but I eventually did. God pricked my heart, and I went forward. I remember coming across a verse one day, and it's in Psalms, and it says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart." I just remember that verse became very real to me in that moment, that if you just delight yourself in God, everything about your life will come to make sense. God will just make clear to you things that I didn't understand why God put me in a house with an alcoholic, but I now see that if it wasn't for my dad's testimony, I would have never been here today, probably. And I now see that if I wouldn't have been bullied in middle school, I would probably been prideful and been boastful, and I probably would have never been where I am today. God humbled me in more ways than one just by that verse, just realizing that God can take away anything, and if you just delight yourself in him, he will give you more than you could ever imagine. And I'm Hallie Harris, and his grace is enough.